have quite a lot of pak choi, and pak choi is a really great cool weather vegetable. So we can grow it year round here without it really risk of bolting much before we get to it. But it's something that you can be sowing now in the autumn, and it doesn't necessarily need to be under cover, but will benefit when it freezes to have a bit of cover. But you should be able to get some good cropping in. This is called a vibrant choi. So it's a colored choi that actually will color more. Oh, look, some mushrooms. I'm not sure what those ones are. Lots of mushrooms. Good sign, lots of mycelium in our soil. But the pak choi will color more if it's colder. So this actually is a really good one to plant this time of year because as it freezes, it will get beautifully colored. So we're gonna pick a few of these. I'm gonna do, I think, about 5 liters of kimchi. So I'm gonna do Pak Choi Kimchi. Here's a couple other, so these are both the same variety of pak choi. They just are coming up slightly different colors. And the nice thing about pak choi is you get that real diversity of texture because the stems have a more sort of vegetable texture, and the leaves have a leafier texture. And then I'm also gonna pick some of our normal pak choi, which is just here over. You can see it's flowering a bit, which is fine. It'll be a bit more bitter, but because I'm gonna ferment it, and you can see just the lovely ribs on it. Really, really great veg, especially for colder climates. Have really been enjoying this one. To preserve pak choi, we make kimchi like I'm gonna make with you today. And we also just freeze it. So all you need to do to freeze pak choi is simply cut it up and vacuum pack it. And then you stick it straight in your fridge. And you can use it for stir fries and other sort of leafy veg. Ooh. A lot of pak choi. So we have harvested all of this amazing food, and now the question is, what are we going to do with it? So first up, I'm going to start some paste for my pak choi kimchi. I've never actually made this before, but it seems like a good idea, and I have so much pak choi. So I'm gonna start with grinding a kimchi paste. The paste for kimchi is ginger, garlic, onions, and gochugaru, which is a Korean chili powder. You don't need to use gochugaru if you can't find it. You can use any sort of red chili powder. Gochugaru does have a very distinctive flavor. It is almost smoky, quite deep flavored chili, and not terribly spicy, but you can always use red chili flakes or cayenne pepper for this as well. So I'm gonna add some mouli to my kimchi. I love mouli in it. Mouli is also a daikon radish, and I'm just gonna use my food processor. So I just need to kind of cut it into some big pieces, and then I'll cut it into thin little slices. All right, so I've got my pak choi washed. I've got my onions, ginger, and garlic pureed. I've got some daikon radishes that I've thinly sliced julienne, and then I've got a big jar that I'm going to start stuffing it all into. I realize my kitchen is very messy. It's a very small kitchen, so we don't really have a lot of choices about kind of working on really small spaces. So I just cut off the actual leaves versus the stalks of the pak choi, and so I'm cutting those quite fine. And I'm gonna give those a second rinse because that's actually where a lot of the dirt kind of holds. Now, we're not super, fussy about dirt, generally speaking, but we don't really particularly want any in the kimchi to ferment. And then in a big bowl, I'm going to add my washed pak choi stems, about an equal amount of daikon, give those a bit of a toss, and then I'm going to chop my my leaves of my pak choi. And again, just nice and fine, not too thin. A lot of people will dry brine their kimchi, which basically means not add water. But I love a really juicy kimchi because I love to add the stock to soups and things like that. And to be totally honest, I drink it. All right, so I've got a nice full bowl. And I'm doing this in 2 batches. My jar is super big. So I'm gonna add half of my mix of onions and garlic and ginger. To be totally honest, I don't really measure this, so I don't have exact, quantities. I add about 5 centimeters of ginger, 4 cloves of garlic, and half of a big white onion. And then I'm just gonna mix that through. So for salt, I use just a free-flowing, it's called a PDV salt, premium vacuum grade or something, PGD or something like that. But it doesn't matter, just table salt is fine. And I add about 2 tablespoons per 3 liters. And in the recipe, I'll write that out a bit better. And then I'm also gonna add, to taste, my gochugaru. I add about a tablespoon for a big bowl like this. We don't like it too spicy because the kids eat kimchi as well.
And when Kat says gochugaru, she means red chili pepper powder.
Yeah, so that's the...
Yeah, as a more layman's term.
I already explained it.
Oh. I'm explaining it again.
Okay, then I'm just gonna stuff my jar. I'm making an enormous mess. And then we're just gonna keep repeating that process until we have used up all of my pak choi.
A little bit ripe.
So I didn't finish my tutorial on the pak choi kimchi. I must have wandered away. So after I have packed up the jar, you're gonna wanna fill it really high. So I filled the jar just pretty much to the top. And then what you need to do is top it up with a bit of water and use some sort of fermentation weight, or I actually use the end of my pak choi, just that sort of root end, the roots cut off, and use it to damp down and just stuck it in to keep all the vegetable matter under the liquid. That's what stops any sort of molds from forming and keeps a nice anaerobic or non-oxygenated environment. So I flip the top over, take out this rubber gasket to let some air in and out, and then just close it up. And then you're gonna leave it on the side. So I leave it for about 2 weeks, but I like mine very fermented. So you may want to try to taste it after about 5 days. And then you can just eat it. And our favorite way to eat kimchi is actually a kimchi fritter. And I will link the recipe in the post.